Welcome to the Manufacturing Shakeup. We're your hosts, Ellen Feldman-Ornato
and Jenny Drescher. We're talking with dynamic women from across the manufacturing scene in Connecticut. Hey, Shake-Up fans. You know that dominant narrative that we have here in manufacturing? I know it was alive and well when I was working in industry, that it's so hard to be a woman in manufacturing. Blech! What if we just totally disrupted and destroyed that narrative because it's not really helping us anymore? Today, we have a really cool guest on, Paige Raffaele from East Branch Engineering and Manufacturing. Welcome to the Shake-Up.
Thank you. Thank you for having me.
We're very happy to have you here. The reason that I think Paige is wicked cool is because Paige is a young woman working in manufacturing who has not had this dominant narrative of it's so hard to be a woman in her psyche, the way that most of us did who came up in manufacturing for years and years and years. I'm not saying that narrative isn't out there alive and well. It's been true for me in my career, but what we're excited about with Paige is that she is this glorious example of the new narrative and the new manufacturing landscape. Oof, so cool. Paige, can you give us a snapshot of how you got to your current job?
Sure. Well, very early on. So I started at Abbott Technical High School in Danbury, and I had two great instructors there, Mr. Bova and Mr. Mills. So they helped me a lot. And it was difficult at the time, too, because COVID was, so we were online a little bit for school. But they did a great job figuring everything out and training us the best that they could. And then I continued my education in manufacturing when I went to Naugatuck Valley Community College. And there I also had two great instructors, Mr. Anthony DeFederico and Steve. And they helped me, along with Sharon Lucas, get an internship here at East Branch. And so now I interned at East Branch when I was in Naugatuck, and I just started working full time about 7 months ago when I graduated from Naugatuck.
So what I love about what you just said, a big part of the conversation all along, and particularly right now, is what role do allies have? What role do men have in bringing women up and through their careers? And I was just like, I made a list of all the people you just named who were wholly supportive of you pursuing this career and finding your way to your current manufacturing position. So that's something I just love to hear, that you had allies all the way through, that you felt supported. So let's dial it back, though. When you were at Abbott Tech, what would you say the percentage was of young women to young men in your program that was looking or directed towards manufacturing?
So when I started, there were 16 of us in the shop, and 5 of us were women. So pretty big for compared to some of the other shops as well. Some of the trade shops didn't have as many, and we had 5. I know a couple of them are not in manufacturing now, but a few of us remained in manufacturing or mechanical engineering, somewhere along the lines that can relate to manufacturing in a way. So yeah, pretty high percentage compared to from like some of the other shops in Abbott.
Yep. And did you always know you wanted to do something with your hands? What put you into Abbott Tech? What put you into sort of that pathway for yourself?
So my grandfather, my uncle, and my brother all went to Abbott Tech. I would say I was always a hands-on person when I was a kid also. My parents would bring me to those little like Home Depot kid project kind of things, me and my brother after soccer practice. So I think a lot of it did start there. And so, yeah, I look up to my brother a whole lot. So he was going to Abbott Tech. He's 4 years older than me. So he was going at the time and he really enjoyed it. And I saw how much he enjoyed it and how much he benefited from going there and going to a trade school and learning a trade. And so, I aspired to do something similar to him, not exactly like him, but end up as successful as he is today.
Mm. When you look, I love this because you have and Ellen, your note about there's so many men supporting in this scene that Paige is describing about what her life looks like. And that is very inspiring also from the point of view of we're living in a time when, we're really trying to see more women coming up through STEM, more women coming up through STEAM, and seeing these male allies both in family and in external sources like teachers or folks who run programs. That's a really big deal. And so I would invite any of our male listeners to pay attention to Paige's story and say, who are the bright young women in my midst that are the next Paige? That's a fun question to play with. I'm curious what it feels like. I'm just remembering me, right? I was a hot mess when I was your age. And I don't mean that in a derogatory way to you, like you're so young, but I mean, you are new in your career. And when I was new in my career, I was definitely a hot mess. I loved certain things. Like I was learning how to drive a forklift and I was working in industry and that was fun. But you seem so together to me. And I'm very curious, how is it to be looking at the landscape of your future from this place where you have such solid career footing? Like, how does that affect your lens on your life?
I think one of the big things that I always do is keep an open mind. So in manufacturing, there's so much you can do. There's so many different paths that you can take. And my two bosses here, Chris and Paul, they have helped me in the sense of they sort of ask like, okay, what are you interested in? Like, what do you want to learn more about that you think like you can use in the future? And I think just keeping an open mind of those different paths that you can take is very important. I think that I would rather keep learning and learn more things than to focus and keen on one thing, where if you learn more than one thing, you can have more opportunities in the future. And I think that's been my mindset kind of from the start. And so I think that's a big thing, just keeping an open mind to different paths.
We talk about going wide instead of deep, which is what you just described. And we've actually met people in other companies where, they thought I need to move to another company to get my next career move. And if they were willing to take other positions within the same company, they actually created it. She referred to it specifically, instead of a career ladder, it was more of a career lattice. Like she was willing to move between different departments and acquire different buckets of skill and then roll those forward into the next thing, which sounds like that's what you're doing as well, is just being curious about a lot of things.
Yes, and like working at a company, they've helped me in the sense of I can learn these things, but we're still keeping production going. It's not something that's hurting the company. It's not something. It's helping both of us. So I think that's an important thing too. I think some people are worried they're like, oh, I'm too slow at this at the beginning, but you have to start somewhere.
Right. So having patience with yourself is important. Do you find that you have the courage to speak up when you see something that you have a question about?
Yes, absolutely. I think one of the big things is just being comfortable, knowing when you make a mistake or have a question. And, I am young, so I am going to make mistakes. And I think it's better to be honest than to try to hide it and fix it in a way and not really know what I'm doing. I think it's much more beneficial to ask, so that I can learn from that too. And the next time I'm not going to make that same mistake.
What are some of the stretch challenges that you are excited about in this phase of your career while you're learning how to how to be in the workforce and how to continue to hone your craft? Like, what are some of the challenges that get you up out of bed excited in the morning?
I think an interesting thing is just the different way that you have to think between different jobs. So here we do a lot of small production runs and sometimes repeat jobs. And between the different jobs, you may be working on more than one machine or a different machine, like that the job was run on last time. You might have to set it up on a different machine. And I think it's very interesting. Like you do have to think a different way. Working on a 3-axis is different than working on a 5-axis. So something that worked on a axis may not work on a 5-axis. And I think that that's a challenge I enjoy. It can be frustrating at times, like anything else, but it is a good challenge that keeps me up. It's almost like what am I going to do today?
Ooh, getting up and being excited about what am I going to do today? What do I get to solve today? Those seem like really good things to have in your head every day as you wake up. What do I get to figure out and solve? And I mean, that strikes me as a great way to look at any work that we might do in life. I really like your attitude. I like that's something I encourage myself to do too. What do I get to solve today? Which is a very different mentality than sort of the one that sometimes we can fall into, the trap of something is happening to me. Right? Yeah, exactly. Like, right. So I love the positivity of your attitude. And, sometimes positivity can get a bad rap as something that's meaningless. But if we look at you as a really great example of the next generation of bright and focused, positive workers in manufacturing, that strikes me as a critical positivity aptitude that you're putting on display in your mindset.
Well, thank you. And I would say I wasn't always like that, because I am a bit of a perfectionist, and I like to get things done correctly, and but right on the first try. And so I like I said, I didn't always have that mindset. So it's something I've learned just by being in the industry.
I have a question for you about your internship, because you went right from college where they helped you get this placement into a job. What was it about the environment or the working climate at East Branch that made you think, if they offered me a job, I would want to stay here?
Yeah, I think, well, it's a small company, so I liked that I knew everybody that I worked with. And I like everybody here. So I think that that's a big thing that also helps me get up in the morning. I'm not going to work worrying, oh no, I have a conflict with this coworker. Like, what am how's my day going to go today? That's not really a worry when I come here. I think everybody here is very friendly and hardworking, and people care about what they do here. I think that that's a big impact because I care about what I do too. So I feel like those things sort of clicked here. Just the environment itself, everybody's very friendly and hardworking, and I think sometimes that's all it takes to get a job done.
And what about the physical environment? I'm curious because I think about a year ago they did a survey here in Connecticut, and they were looking at, like, what are the obstacles to young people getting into manufacturing, and one of the legacy objections to going into manufacturing is this whole conversation that is dark, dirty, and dangerous. And we've yet to go into, on a manufacturing tour, an environment that feels like it's dark, dirty, and dangerous. So I'm wondering, what was the physical climate like in the place where you're working?
Yeah, it's very very clean. We sweep the floors every day. I would say the one thing that they're doing here at East Branch is that they're constantly improving. So, we got a few new machines last year, and we're working on changing the floor. So I think that's also a big thing, is just always looking for room to improve. And yes, with CNC machines too, like they're enclosed, it's much more cleaner. Yeah, I think the general work environment's very, very good, very clean.
Awesome.
So I'm gonna pull through our shakeup factors because I learned a lot from you today, Paige. So our shakeup factors today are I'm going to challenge all of us who came out of industry and maybe looking at how do we encourage the next generation to come into industry the way that Paige has. How do we, if we're all out to expand the number of people that are in manufacturing in Connecticut, let's check the stories that we're telling ourselves. Let's check the stories that we're telling other people, because Paige's story is one that we want to start telling about, hey, I've followed the path to get into this great career. My future is bright, and I get to learn something new and solve a problem every day. I don't know about you, but I dig that story. I think that's an amazing story, and that's the one I'm going to start telling. So that's my shakeup factor number one. Our shakeup factor number two is around this wonderful role that Paige has had with the men in her life. So we know that loads and loads of men out there in our Connecticut landscape want to be fierce advocates for making sure that women feel like they can absolutely succeed in manufacturing. And we've heard that from time and time again from so many men that we meet out in manufacturing spaces. So give a listen, our menfolk friends, to what are the things that you can be doing to be a fierce advocate for women in your physical environment? You know, are you a teacher? Are you a mentor? Are you a boss that looks out and double checks? Is this an environment where everybody, whether they are tall, short, big, small, female, male, can thrive? And then one last shakeup factor that I dig that Paige gave us today was letting go of perfectionism. Because that, man, I don't know about y'all, but I need to always be working on letting go of, it doesn't need to be perfect. Done is better than perfect in many areas of our lives. Even in precision machining, there's room for that. So Paige Raffaele, just like the painter of East Branch Engineering and Manufacturing, it has been such a pleasure to hear your story, and we know that you are going to inspire lots of other young folks to get into manufacturing. Thanks for hanging out with us today.
Thank you so much. Means a lot.
Thanks, Paige. The Manufacturing Shakeup is sponsored by the Connecticut Office of Manufacturing, produced by Maselli Productions and Gale Communications, and hosted by the Boulder Company.